So I saw the demo, my eyes open wide, and I was like, wow, I wish I had this as an SDR. So I was booking far more meetings than like my peer who's making 150 dials. Maybe I'm making 80 or less dials, but then I'm getting meetings just coming into my inbox from
Yeah.
introductions. And everybody's like, what the heck is Colin doing? Like, this is so wild. And so it was really just that curiosity of like, well, who typically helps you decide, technology, or who advises you on like systems like ADP and others? Say yes to everything, yes to every, like so much magic has happened for me just saying yes to attending all kinds of events and getting on all, getting on all kinds of planes and sitting next to people.
All right, we got another episode of iQ² with the man, the myth, the legend, Colin Specter. I'm Nabeel Ahmed, for anybody who's new, to our new listeners, as this is a kind of a new thought leadership series that we are kicking off. The VP of Growth and Partnerships here at LeadIQ, B2B contact data platform. And we help and supply and support and partner with a lot of folks in the industry, Orum being one of them. Mr. Collins got an amazing background and history on how he got to where he is today. He is currently the SVP of Revenue at Orum, but I won't butcher the introduction at all. Colin, why don't you intro yourself to everybody?
Nabeel, I'm honored to be here. First of all, grateful to you and the audience for tuning in. Uh, Definitely did not butcher the intro there. Coming from a background of sales development, I started my sales and SaaS career as an SDR, working in HR tech, which I knew nothing about going into the role, but immersed myself into it and let my curiosity kind of drive me in learning like what HR is all about, what HR leaders care about, and found myself really rising through the ranks through that curiosity, and selling through curiosity is really what has really driven my career and what we teach here at Orum. And so went from SDR to AE, to AE manager, and then director of sales and director of enablement. And then after a 5-year run at Namely, we went from zero, and I'm an early stage builder. We went from zero to 70 million. We raised money from Sequoia and a lot of the big venture capitalists. Got the tap on the shoulder to go, first of all, take a demo of Orum at the time because of my position as a director. I was getting solicited all the time from sales tech, revenue tech, and I saw this wave of kind of AI sales solutions coming. And that was when like Gong and Chorus were starting to really like evangelize this concept of having artificial intelligence in as like kind of a co-pilot and assisting with like analysis and after action reports. And I knew that's where the puck was going. And so I had in my mind, I wanted to work at an AI company and something selling to my peers, selling to salespeople. Like I'm super passionate, super driven by the sales profession, the sales career, coaching people. And when I took a demo of Orum, at the time they were a fledgling kind of bootstrap startup. I My eyes just like open wide. Like I'm a huge believer in the phones, and for those that are unfamiliar with Orum, we call ourselves an AI live conversation platform. We're all about getting your salespeople into more live conversations over the phone. So it's an inside sales or sales development reps kind of dream technology when it comes to cold calling and connecting and having live conversations with your market. So I saw the demo, my eyes open wide, and I was like, wow, I wish I had this as an SDR. It's the first reaction I had, and got a sense of like where they were taking the company. And um, long story short, I basically met with some of the customers. The founders had done a good job selling Orum to a few notable names, like got it started at Rubrik, which has since gone IPO, and CrowdStrike, which went IPO. And so I was like, wow, you've got Rubrik, you've got CrowdStrike, you've got Zenefits as customers. And the customer feedback was just so positive and so high that I knew there was something there. And so, basically jumped on the Orum ship as the first W2 hire, like after the
Oh,
founding
wow.
team. Yeah, it was Jason, Karthik, Patrick, and Terry were like the founding team. And then I came on, and the company was so new and raw that like they didn't have, I had a kid at the time, and I still have kids, but I
Yeah.
was the only one that actually had like a family at that time in the company, and so I had to get a health insurance plan for the business. That's
Oh
how
wow.
new the company was, and I had learned a bit about insurance because I had immersed myself into HR at Namely. It's like, hey, look, like I sold HR tech for 5 years. Maybe I'll just wear the HR hat, um, and so actually like installed the Gusto payroll platform, brokered the insurance plan, and like started wearing all these different hats. So like I had the title VP of sales, but I was also like an SDR, the
Yeah.
HR leader, RevOps. I was the deal desk guy. It
But
was
what's crazy about this, first W-2 hire after the founding team, 6 years later, you're SVP of revenue, meaning you've survived. You've created the gauntlet and survived your own gauntlet, and you're continuing to help that business scale in a new direction. And that's what do I love about just you, Colin, and your history is you went from SDR from a company that scaled extremely quickly to then the VP of sales at a company that was ready to kind of scale up but very very small, and still put the ego aside and did whatever you needed to do to kind of get there and going. That's what I love about it. What is one thing that you could take away or give everybody of the learnings that you had as an SDR that are still applying to you today?
Yeah, I think it's selling through curiosity. And what do I mean by that? It's letting your curiosity guide you to seek out the ways that you can solve problems for your customers. So I'll give you the example at Namely, right? Namely, we're cold calling HR leaders and selling an HRIS. It was like this new concept of like HR systems of record that bundle in like benefits administration and payroll. And we were going up against, it was like Namely and Zenefits were the first movers like in this space. The legacy players were ADP and Paychex, and back then Gusto was called Zen Payroll. They were like also the new kid on the block, and so we were all kind of battling to like evangelize the market. And now you've got companies like Deal, Rippling, Remote. This is very common technology to have like everything in one place. But at that time, it was like revolutionary. And so I was cold calling all these HR leaders, and they would consistently say, look, like, HR makes the decision over like the onboarding and the ATS, but if you're talking about benefits administration, like my broker actually recommends that, or payroll that my CFO recommends that. I'm like, well, who's your broker? And so I just started like collecting the names of the benefits advisors and brokers, and then started cold calling those people. And that opened up this whole world for me because those brokers wanted to look good with their clients. And so they wanted to bring in and recommend cool cutting edge technologies. And so it was like kind of novel partnering with brokers and benefits advisors. And as an SDR, I had these network nodes of advisors and brokerage shops that had access to thousands of clients. Some of these big shops like Marsh and McLuhan Benefits and some of these big consulting shops. And so they would make the Benefit Mall in New York was another one, and they would make these introductions to some of their clients. So I was booking far more meetings than like my peer who's making 150 dials. Maybe I'm making 80 or less dials, but then I'm getting meetings just coming into my inbox from
Yeah.
introductions. And everybody's like, what the heck is Colin doing? Like, this is so wild. And so it was really just that curiosity of like, well, who typically helps you decide, technology, or who advises you on like systems like ADP and others. And so you start to figure out the who's who in the zoo, and peel back the onion, and figure out the people that you need to connect with and build trust with and get excited, have that exciting transference of excitement and emotion with, to get them to want to take a look. And once you've proven some initial value, you've reduced uncertainty, like people are going to start to open the door for you. They're going to make introductions. And so it accelerated my career at Namely. I became an AE in less than a year, and just kind of kept that up. Like I just always had a pipeline of clients and would just smash my AE number. And so much so they wanted me to replicate that. And I got the opportunity to go open an office in LA and build that team from scratch, improve that we could scale the playbook. And so we became the highest performing team in the company in LA. We're a New York based company. I flew to LA as like a parachuted in
Yeah.
rep. And so, yeah, it was a really fun ride at Namely. And then uh, at Orum, it was a very similar approach. It was like, okay, like let's get curious about this whole concept. Like, first of all, I had been an SDR, so it was like selling to my peers, right? And so, like, selling through curiosity, trying to understand like what's the biggest challenge that the revenue persona is facing from their perspective, right? Like each unique person, right? There's like core risks and problems that big companies want to solve, but each individual will have their own kind of challenge that they're focused on solving. And so, I focus on what we teach is like the 5 magic questions in selling through curiosity. And so, the first questions around just what's the biggest challenge you're facing in your role right now? What happens if you don't address this challenge? What are you currently doing to solve this challenge, or what have you tried before? Like, what have you tried so far? What would it mean if we solve this challenge? Like, if we solve this challenge for you, what would it mean to you? Like, what's that personal win that's in it for you? And you start to get a
Yeah.
champion building here. And then what's your timeline? Like, how urgent is this to be solved? Like, what's your timeline to wanting something in place? And so then you're getting like the biggest pain, what they've tried so far. So what you need to overcome from like past experience, timeline, and just like the personal win for them, right? And so it gives you really everything you need. And there are some sub questions to peel the onion, but yeah, I guess long-winded answer is say let your curiosity drive you. The magic questions of curiosity are throughput and timeless no matter what you're selling, no matter what industry. I went from HR, payroll, benefits to now selling like phone and connection rates and cold calling and rev ops. So very
it's
different
it's all
personas as
applicable at
well.
that sense. But
Yeah.
the interesting thing is like for anybody, like even SDRs who are listening or leaders who are listening, right? I think the core themes always apply. It's that curiosity, but it's also creating that relationship with the people who you talk to, right? Because I know people can get pretty lost in the idea of like, oh, you got to make X amount of calls, which is a necessary requirement, but it's almost like you got to make X amount of relationships here versus the amount of calls. And so what was really interesting on how what I picked up on was like you created this distribution of value where people were, hey, Colin's the guy I should try to help with because we are both mutually incentivized to help each other out. Or I just like the guy. He's a good conversation, which gave many leads to you. And that's almost kind of how we're seeing the market. The market right now is how do I amplify my current sales team versus add more sales team to drive to the number. It's how can I make my reps be the best that they are so that they can actually produce the value that they can do, which we think is maybe 2x more than what the current situation is. So the question is the value creation around or creating that distribution network of value creation where people are like, I know Colin, I should have a conversation with Colin. How do you recommend to anybody who's listening or starting the career to generate that, right? Is it meeting as many coffee dates as you can, more dinners, more face-to-face, or is it just asking those 5 questions, understanding where they want to be, and then trying to drive value to provide that value to them?
Yeah, all the above, all the above. I'd say like, especially if we're talking about early in your career and even beyond, say yes to everything, yes to every, like so much magic has happened for me just saying yes to attending all kinds of events and getting on getting on all kinds of planes and sitting next to people. And I'll give you an example. I sat next to a lady on a plane recently, and you and I are always on the road, at these events. And she turned out to be the wife of the head of sales for one of the largest private jet companies in the world.
Wow.
And she's like, yeah, I think my husband uses Salesforce. I'm going to put you guys in touch. It sounds interesting what you do. And she actually put us in touch and wound up going to dinner with that sales leader and his wife. And I brought my wife. And it was just through like connecting with someone on the plane that sat next to me. And lo and behold, they had a whole team of inside sales reps that were making calls and generating corporate business for their private jet company. And now we do business together. Now they're an Orum customer. It's like not a typical ICP selling to private jet companies. and it was like an awesome opening for us in the aviation industry now. And so, just because I said yes to going to that event and happened to, I had good travel karma,
Yeah.
I guess built up, but it's happened a few times where like sit next to someone on a plane. I'm not saying every flight, but like I fly enough to where statistically I've gotten lucky, and luck definitely plays a part here, but it's also the energy you put out. And are you being open with your body language and wanting to connect with people? And so all the
So
above is my sum up for what you asked. Yeah.
so anybody who's listening, airline travel should be new pipeline source, right? So
Yes.
anybody, so did you get anybody who graded a deal attributed to pipeline, and there's your close one revenue attribution right there. So marketing should be all over that. The funny thing is actually, Lead IQ and Orum are pretty close partners, and we're continuing to grow together. But the first time I actually met face to face with Colin, believe it or not, I didn't even know he was going to be at this event, was actually in a sauna at Chili Palooza. So shout out to Chili Piper for hosting the event. But it allowed us to spark, just a face to face. Hey, I know you, you know me. We're doing things together. Let's have conversations. And look at us now, and look where we're at. And I think we're only scratching the surface of that. So I
Yeah.
completely agree with everything that you're saying. It makes so much sense in the sense of relationships. But let's kind of wrap that in where we think the future of the market is going, right?
Sure.
I don't know if it's you're feeling the same way or if it's just me, but I feel like from last year to this year, I'm seeing like a 5 to 10x more. Hey, micro dinners are happening. These events I need you to be at. Here are the engagements that we're moving forward on. Is face to face the new like way of refining the deals that you're initiating on from a cold call or calling perspective?
Yeah, no, Nabeel, I think you hit on it before. It is about relationships. It is about holistic differentiation, and that's like your value alignment, your even your political alignment with a brand, and how do you actually connect with people and kind of convey your values and your desire to serve and partner and all of that. I think face to face is the highest fidelity. I will say like this is newer maybe to SaaS, but it's been what blew my mind at Namely when I went from SDR and then we started selling insurance at Namely. When I got into the benefits world is all about relationships and doing the old school dinners and the box seat at the sports game or the golf tournament. And so I was like, wow, like this is so different from selling inside sales and SaaS. I know some enterprise sales motions participate in that and have done that a long time. But if we're talking about like upper mid market commercial, even just general enterprise sales, this is definitely starting to be more of the theme. We're seeing more account based coming back into vogue in SaaS, and getting really focused on who you want to win and where you're willing to invest on that key account list. Of course, it always depends on your ICP, your ideal customer profile, and the type of TAM, the total addressable market you have to work with. And so if you have like a smaller key account list, yeah, you're doing the micro dinners, you're doing the events, you're doing the strategic gifting strategy, different creative types of engagements. If you're someone like let's say a Ramp, or a Rippling, where you've got a massive TAM, right? These are like newer age HR tech or fintech companies that sell to literally the world of small businesses, medium, large, like anybody
Yeah.
that has a payroll, which could be two people in a garage, has a payroll that you can sell to, you're still more kind of mass appeal and you're doing broad based, I see billboards, I see commercials from these type of companies. So I think it depends on the account list and the type of accounts you're going after. And so you might have a different playbook for each motion, even at the same company. Like I imagine if you're a Rippling enterprise rep, you're probably doing more of the micro dinners, the box seats, and so forth, versus like the SMB long tail. You're doing more broad based kind of cold calling, billboards, commercials, email campaigns, all of that. So
Yeah.
I think it's definitely newer to SaaS in general, and we're seeing the more of a theme, especially like you and I in the world we live on LinkedIn. It's more prevalent, but it's always been there. It's just kind of merging in more with SaaS than ever before, I think.
The interesting thing about this, and there's a lot of businesses. I think there's like the new age AI companies that are coming out, and everybody's like they're closing rounds, they're big, they're fatty, everybody's getting excited about it. And then there's the SaaS companies that have raised their large rounds, but are in the mode of either profitability or expanding into different markets, right? And so there's this like almost split, right? People who can spend a lot of money, people who can't spend a lot of money. And then there's more problems or I wouldn't call them problems, speed bumps. Companies trying to move up market. I think we hear this a lot, right? You grow as a typical SaaS company that's starting out, that's, bootstrapped. Like I'm focusing on obtaining customers really quick. They're typically SMB or iterate, and then have the ability to grow into enterprise. For those people who are looking to make that transformation, that jump into enterprise, who don't necessarily have the buy-in probably from marketing to do a box or these really nice private dinner at Michelin star restaurants, what do you think the right recommendation is to where you can entice an enterprise customer in to have a conversation with you, but you're not necessarily breaking the bank? And the idea of me asking this question is, can we give ammo to reps out there to be like, oh, I want to try or ask this to my management to see if I could potentially do something like this?
Yeah, I think you need to be aligned on your strategy. So if the strategy is, hey, we have an initiative to go into the enterprise, then it means that we're probably going to take a piece of the kind of monthly Google ad spend, and put it towards experimenting with these type of events. And most people do appreciate and will reciprocate invitations to a dinner or an event or a gift. If effort is there, the law of reciprocity holds true, and executives will reciprocate if they feel the effort, right? If it doesn't feel like authentic effort, like an AI generated email or like a spray and pray cold call without like much relevancy or intent behind the call, that won't be reciprocated. I think what AI is doing is it's kind of numbing people to the effort that used to be there with a hyper customized email. And I do think some emails still stand out from the AI. There's a lot of AI garbage, but and you may not need to do the box seats, by the way. Like with
Mm-hmm.
that, let's say you're spending 20K a month on demand gen, kind of mid market SMB ads. You take maybe 5K a month, and you're doing different engagements, micro events, even less. I mean, maybe you invite them to your podcast, right?
Yeah.
There's probably like lower cost ways where it's like an invitation to engage in some capacity. So it could be a podcast invitation. Maybe you're giving away a strategic like workshop, like some sort of deposit of value for the executive, or maybe you're getting them a ticket to a conference that they would get excited about in their industry that maybe their company would not normally be sponsoring. There's other creative ideas. It doesn't always have to be like a box seat, to Madison Square Garden or what have you. So um, yeah, I think like you need permission to experiment, especially if it's a newer market, and start to get a sense of your target personas. Like, where do they hang out? Like, what industries? What, like, most people like sports or events, and maybe if
Yeah.
they're a family person, it's the box seats for Disney on Ice, as an example. Like, most people like events or fancy dinners, and if even if they decline it, they're going to remember you invited them, right? And there's still
Exactly.
some like semblance of reciprocity there. So
So yeah, and then I think it depends on how far. Let's say I'm a rep and how far I want to go. So for me, the basics is sometimes communication between organizations like sales and marketing is actually just not even happening. So like question one, hey marketing, what's the events calendar looking like? Where are you guys going to be physically? If it's one event a year, 10 events a year, like what is that? That is a good indicator to say, hey, like maybe I can identify the right customer accounts that I think are going to be in the area. And that could be an initial trigger. One. Number two, exactly what Colin was saying, like, hey, understand budgets a bit more. I know it might be a weird question that an AE is asking a marketer, but as long as you provide clear context on the hypothesis that you'd want to test, then people are more than willing to try it. Hey, let maybe see, maybe I can help Nabeel or Colin kind of achieve XYZ through this perspective. We test it out with a few grand here, and if it works, maybe we double down on that strategy. So I think a lot of people are open to the ideas. Sometimes as reps or sales leaders, sometimes you might have to get out of your comfort zone to say, hey, I actually think this is the psychology of what my ICP is within this tier of mid-market above and enterprise, and that is the conversation I need to have. But the right way to do it to get ourselves outside of the noise is by being physically there, right? Um,
Yeah.
let me rewind this back too, and where I want to see is that Orum's making a lot of really good advancements and initiatives and features that they're building within their product. And at its core, what you do is you help people get connected with the right people in a very efficient and quick manner, right? So it's how do I increase the amount of at bats to create relationships is how I view Orum as a platform. What else is coming out? What sneak preview can you give kind of the market on what's happening? Why do you think that's important? And why do why should people use it?
Yeah, no, Nabil, appreciate the the alley oop question here,
Yeah.
and so let me dunk it in here
Let's dunk
as
it.
the revenue for Orum. So through partnerships with Lead IQ and Orum's own innovations, we've really solved the problem and continue to do so as the market evolves. How do you connect, like being effective and efficient at connecting with your target market, right? The target people that you want to have conversations with. So Orm is all about getting you into those conversations. Now that has created a secondary problem. People need to be effective at the conversation itself and be successful when they're in the conversation. And so Orem has really centered our product roadmap around enablement and coaching and helping reps be effective when they're actually on the live conversation. And that's through a combination of enablement features around call scoring. So we have an AI that will score the call after the fact and give instant feedback to the rep, and then also serve up sales training and enablement based upon where the rep might need improvement, or if the rep knocks it out of the park, an opportunity to surface that call to their leadership and potentially be added to a playlist of what good looks like. So creating these kind of smart workflows around calls, because historically, like a lot of people record calls, but it kind of just becomes this like data dump of like tons and tons of calls, and you're not even sure which calls to focus on. And so Orem kind of proactively filtering and sorting and surfacing up to leaders and to reps areas of opportunity for improvement, also examples of what good looks like. So that's a key area for us on the scoring front. And then when you're in the actual conversation, what are some prompts? What are some cues that the rep can benefit from, especially when it comes to more of a technical sale, or if you sell a multi-product solution to multiple personas? It could be a lot for a sales rep to keep track of by memory. And it's another thing if you have like a bunch of post-it notes or a bunch of Google Docs open with your script. So Orem creating these cue cards, these kind of what a lot of people call battle cards. When a certain persona comes in, a certain problem statement is mentioned, or I'm queuing the rep up, of course, in partnership with our client about what good looks like for that talk track. So again, giving the rep a bit of guidance, a bit of crutch to know they have something to lean on and reference. It could be a customer story, it could be a specific feature that they should ask about at that moment in the call. And so those live cues is a new innovation for Orem as well. And then we have a whole coaching hub where it brings all of this together. It includes trends and insights around behaviors across your sales organization. So everything from, of course, your how great your data is to the conversion rates from opener to close, and recommending insights and prescription for solutions after the fact as well. So yeah,
I love
that's
that. No,
direction we're going.
and when you see kind of everything, right? Like, there's a lot of people like, hey, I need this tool, I need this tool, I need this tool. But I think what I love about what you're talking about here today is like, we might be a software provider that helps you enable more calls, but the real core value of what we're trying to do is get you more at bats, get you trained real time, and in constant feedback on what you're doing, so that it's not about the amount of calls that you have, it's about the amount of connections and real life conversations that you're having, which will lead to more. And when we look at kind of the ecosystem, Orem is, tip of the spear to kind of get things done and connected to your right contact. For us at Lead IQ, we think about the data, right? Like, data is how can we be the right data provider to provide you with the right flows and integrate with the right partners like Orum, so that we can be one step in that process to where Orum can take you to another step to where you can actually close these deals. right? And I think this is where the beauty of a lot of this goes is we see that we're not only helping real innovative teams that are on fast paths of growth, but we're also helping innovate the teams that need more out of the existing teams that they currently have. So you probably are hearing this too, Colin, with all the other CEOs and board members that you're having conversations out there. Is I have this size team. I need to keep this size team for the next year, but my number has grown by 20 to 30%. Right?
Yeah.
This is the necessary conversations to have to kind of get people there. And that's what I love about everything that you guys are doing is it's not about shying away from the physical conversations or the face-to-face events or the emailing. It's about how can Orum help you open up those avenues of opportunity and conversation so that it gives you the higher chance, larger pipeline to make sure you're hitting your number.
Yeah. Sales productivity, right? Sales productivity per rep is a North Star metric for most of our customers, right? And so we're looking at the math of sales, of course, activity, and then there's different conversion levers, right? There's activity to first meeting to qualified to close one, and then velocity and ACV, like how big is the deal, right? So you need to have your math of sales built out, and then you know what levers you could pull on. You can always pull on more activity, right? But what if I can't do more activity, or if I do more, am I sacrificing conversion rate? And so you want to figure out how can I be more effective on different conversion rates. And so we're offering a suite of solutions in partnership with Lead IQ and others to ensure we're hitting on all avenues of the funnel there.
And a little side effect about this, and we talk about this all the time with Lead IQ, is your time to ramp on any new hire way quicker. If I have battle cards getting popped up, if I have an AI coach that I can talk to, at midnight when I couldn't sleep and I'm deciding to work a little, or at a time when my boss can have a conversation with me, you're now ensuring a lot more probability for success. But 100%. Colin, thank you so much for hopping on the Thought Leadership Series, iQ². I appreciate everything you talked about. I think your history is actually wildly, appreciative. I think any person who's entering the go-to-market arena, specifically as an SDR, look to Colin's journey to understand how quick you need to be, where areas you need to focus on, but anything is possible. And I can't wait to kind of see a CRO title right next to your name, predicting the future right now. But for anybody who wants to reach out to Colin, how can we get you? How do we get after you?
Mostly LinkedIn. Like I'm fairly responsive there, and you can always bump me there if I'm not. But yeah, LinkedIn, that's where I mostly am. So of course, Orum.com. You want to check out Orum, ORUM as in mother.com. Yeah, LinkedIn would be the best place.
And if you can't get connected with him, DM me and I'll give you his cell phone number.
That's right. Lead IQ's got me in there. I'm getting hit up. I call it cold call karma. That's just the way it goes.
And you're probably one of those SVPs that actually pick up a phone call, which I appreciate.
If I'm not on a meeting, I'll pick up. I'm also curious how they're calling me. You know what I mean? So,
we got to find out. That'll be a good poll for me. But Colin, thank you so much. Thank you for the time. Thank you for what you're doing. And everybody watch Colin's journey as he continues to crush the landscape.
Right back at you, Nabeel. Thanks so much. Thanks, everyone.